All right, all right, all right. We are live. If you want to know, well, first of all, my name is Joe Hatagwa from Authentic African. I am in the United States right now. So if you want to know, am I shutting down Authentic African for good now that I've left Africa and moved to the United States? Then this is the video for you. All right, we're live. We are live on all platforms. On all platforms. So look, guys, that's been the number one question, right? I am in New York City right now. As you can see, the background looks different. The internet is clear. You guys can see that I am no longer on the continent of Africa at this very moment. And so one of the major questions that have been coming up, that has been coming up, is what am I going to do with this platform? What am I going to do with Authentic African? I think the first thing we should do is clarify something for everyone here. I do not call myself Authentic African. Actually, before we do that, because I think there's a lot that we need to unpack there. But first, before we do that, let me know that you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, and let me know where you guys are watching from, so I can ensure that you actually can hear what I'm saying and I'm not just talking into the ether. So can you guys give me a thumbs up so I know that you guys are hearing me, and let me know where you guys are watching from so I know where everyone's watching from. And so I'll give it a little moment for everybody to catch up and start to add their notes. Again, can you guys hear me, and where are you watching from? I'm going to add the note in chat. And then same thing on the YouTube chat. Okay. Ali S is watching from Accra, Ghana. Anne-Marie Harding says, I am watching from London. You can hear me. Okay, great. Ali S says you can hear me fine. Cool. So let's just start with that, right? The platform is called Authentic African. I myself do not call myself Authentic African. I think that was something that confused a lot of people. When I would run into people in public, one of the things that people said often was Authentic African, right? And it's like, yes, that's the name of the platform, but my name is not Authentic African. Why I express that is this. In 2019, I decided to launch Authentic African as an e-commerce store and the Instagram page. When I did that, I really didn't have much of an intention of being in front of the camera. My goal wasn't to be sharing too much of my life, because I was living in Los Angeles, California at the time. And so I was just trying to present things to folks who wanted to get closer to their African roots as I did. And I had bought carvings and instruments and all kinds of different things from different parts of the continent of Africa. And I kind of decorated my apartment with those things. And I figured other people who had similar interests would want to do the same thing. And so I was providing that to different folks. Eventually, I realized with the Instagram page that I was offering more than just products that you can buy in an e-commerce store, but actually helping to bridge the gap between these two groups, Africans living on the continent and African descendants living in the diaspora, right? And that was my goal, right, is to bridge the gap between these two groups. And so I utilized the platform to do that. But I never intended to, in the very beginning, intended to be on camera. In fact, Authentic African, I did not show my face on Authentic African until almost 2 years into the platform being built and over 30,000 followers on Instagram before I actually started to show myself on camera. At that time, I actually was moving to Ghana. And at that point in time, it made sense to launch a YouTube channel under this same brand, right? So for those of you who know me from YouTube, you know the platform is Authentic African on YouTube, right? And so you associate me with Authentic African, but if you've noticed, I'm telling, other people's authentic African stories, whether that's people who are building, people who are investing, people who own businesses, right? I am telling people's stories, and that's what we'll continue to do with Authentic African. That is the goal of the platform. The platform is really about helping people understand more about what it's like to visit, move, invest, and live on the continent of Africa. So whether that's through the lens of my experience, having lived there for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, or other folks who are living there, or people who are going back and forth, which is really what my life will look like over the next couple of years, right? Traveling back and forth, being a dual citizen and continuing to do what I had been doing previously, just now with more of a purpose and an understanding of what I'm doing and how to deploy resources, invest in a business, and grow a business while I'm there. So the question has been by so many people, are you going to stop doing Authentic African? What is the point of Authentic African if you're not in Africa? And the reason why I wanted to have that discussion on this live today was to express that regardless of where I am in the world, the platform is still going to operate the way it has been operating, and it will still continue to bring the value that we have been bringing. So it doesn't matter where I am in the world, I'm always going to be bringing value to you guys. So what does that mean for this particular live, right? Because I go live 3 times a week. I'm going live with African Stream, the partnership with African Stream. As you guys might know, that's every Monday. I also am going live with Sierra Leoneans Killing It, which we're going to go live likely on Wednesday of this week as opposed to Monday or today. And then I have this live where we're going to potentially rebrand it, right? I never had a name for this live stream that I was doing. I was just doing the live stream, right? I would just go live with a number of different topics, whatever made sense that week. Sometimes I'd come up with that topic on a Monday. Sometimes I know days in advance what I was going to be talking about, especially if I was planning to interview someone. And so the plan now is just to name the stream Pan-African Perspectives. So the goal is to either interview or discuss things happening on the continent or people living on the continent whose goal is the advancement of the continent, right? And so that's really it. That is what we're going to do with this live every Monday. So we'll continue to go live, and I'll be featuring more folks. There'll be more interviews with folks who live on the continent, who have businesses on the continent, as I have done previously. You guys might remember I've interviewed folks in Ghana, people who have moved to Ghana. I had interviewed folks in Sierra Leone, or people who have businesses in Sierra Leone. We will continue to do that, right? Because the goal is the advancement of the continent. And the idea is that the continent of Africa is able to eventually become self-sufficient and no longer have to rely on Western aid in order to, and Eastern loans, Western aid, Eastern loans in order to maximize its full potential, right? And so that is going to be the goal of the platform, and that is what we're going to be doing moving forward. So no, I'm not shutting down Authentic African. That would be crazy. I spent so much time building this platform and going live every week and continuing to share my story and the story of others to make an adjustment that drastic just because my physical location has changed for more than 3/4 of the year, right? Because I still will be going back to the continent often, at least once a quarter. That's the plan. And I will be continuing to build on everything I have been building. But now with a little bit of a, let's say, an additional investment coming from living on the continent. So, so with that being said, there's a couple questions that I want to address here. So I will address them momentarily. So number one, let's see. Alias says you can hear me fine. Nice. Cornell Smith said, LOL, a little late from Queens. Shout out to Cornell from Queens. We're not too far away from each other. I'm in Brooklyn. Mr. London Boy for Life said, would you be visiting African restaurants and giving a review? I will be visiting African restaurants and giving reviews. So that's a good question. So in terms of vlog content, you guys know that I've done many vlogs. I used to do, a weekly vlog, and I would number the weeks, right? We got all the way up to 180 weeks on the continent, 189 weeks on the continent of Africa. And so I would be like, this week I went to these restaurants in Ghana. I tried these foods. I went to this, bar, and I did that in Sierra Leone. This week, all through the December holidays, these are the parties that I went to. And so the question has been for me, what kind of vlogs would I be doing while here, right? Because I'm on the continent of the North America, I should say. I was going to say on the continent of the United States, which is the United States is a country, not a continent. By the way, jet lag, hadn't had much sleep. So if I make any gaffes or errors, you just blame the fact that I haven't had much sleep, like literally 2 hours of sleep last night or this morning. So I will be going to African restaurants for sure and reviewing the food. Absolutely. So I will be reviewing food at African restaurants wherever I am here in the United States. So when I travel down to the DMV area to visit friends and family, when I go to Atlanta, when I go to Los Angeles, of course, while I'm here in New York, I will be going to different restaurants and trying the food and giving reviews of the food. Absolutely. I'll be doing that. I'll be going to African stores, right? And getting a chance to meet those folks like I did in London. If you guys might remember back in 2022, I went to 3 Sierra Leonean shops and I got a chance to meet folks that had left Sierra Leone, moved to London, and were selling Sierra Leonean foodstuffs to a West African community. And they had made a living, right? And it was just explaining their story, their authentic African story, but now they're immigrants, right? And so, there'll be more stories like that because that will be my everyday life and the people that I'll be around. And I'll be utilizing that time to do those kinds of vlogs. So yes, but I will also still be doing vlogs on the house building project. I mean, that doesn't change. The house is still being built. So whether I am there in person or I am sending or I am someone's capturing video for me on the progress, and I will do voiceover work to talk you through what work is being done. That will all continue to happen. None of that is changing. So on that note, Mr. London Boy for Life said, what's the update on the house in Salon? We have broken ground on the main house, the 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom main house. And the vlogs will be coming on that. Trust me, they're coming. There's just been a lot of movement and a lot of changes. Obviously, with me moving to the United States, there's been a lot of work that has to be done in the background to kind of catch up on lost time and all the different things that need to get organized now that I had, a very short window to move, considering so many different moving pieces, which, like I said, we'll talk about at a later time. Destination Africa Group TV. What's up, guys? They said, what's up, Joe? Missing you here in Ghana. I actually miss being in Ghana as well. It was a great 2.5, almost 3-year run in Ghana. I met some great people like the folks here, the folks at Ghana Bound, Masa and Kenya. So I met some really cool people in Ghana, and shout out to all of you who made my experience in Ghana so great. Country that culturally is very different from what I was used to with Sierra Leone, but it was a home for me for 2 years and a place that I worked full time. I had, a housekeeper. I really got into Ghanaian culture and met a lot of people. And that really helped me to kickstart, right, all of everything that I'm doing here and what I'll be doing on the continent. So I'm looking forward to that. Mr. London Boy for Life, trying African restaurant around the States. Yes, exactly. That's what I said I will be doing. EO says, you moved back to the USA. I did. If you have any questions about that, right, check the last live that I did. I went live last week and I explained why I moved back to Africa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in the chat here. And so when you guys are ready, after this replay is done replaying and this live is done, you can actually copy this link and you're going to go to the link and watch that live if you haven't seen it already. I think it'll really give you a lot of context and insight into why I have decided to move. Mr. London Boy for Life said, I'd love to build an amusement park in Africa, but I want to know which country would be advisable to build in. I would say schedule a one-on-one consultation with me, and we can talk through what that might look like. So you just want to email me at authenticafricanlife@gmail.com. You do that, and I'll be able to help you. So let me actually just create the ticker for that. So Authentic African Life at gmail.com. There we go. Just did that in real time. Is the banner showing up? It's not showing up yet, is it? Let's go ahead and show that. There we go. So there's the banner. So if you'd like to schedule some time with me, you can consult with me and I can talk you through my personal experience, right? And what I can do to help you make a decision about where you might want to move, build this amusement park. There's a lot to discuss, right? Because, you know, that's not something we can spend too much time here. It's going to definitely need a one-on-one consultation to know a bit more about your background and to know a little bit more about you to help you make that decision. Jerry Campbell is in the building. Hey, he says hello to Joe and all. What's up, Jerry? So back to the topic at hand, right? You know, so we are going to be calling this live Pan-African Perspective, right? And the goal is always about the advancement of the continent of Africa, and that's what the discussions are going to look like. So, you know, I spent a little bit of time last weekend kind of thinking through, you know, how do I create a theme around this to ensure that I'm still offering value to everyone, even though not every single live will take place from my bedroom in Freetown, Sierra Leone, or my former apartment in Accra, Ghana, right? How do I still ensure that those of you who are following the platform are still getting the same benefit that we were getting before? And so all of those things will still apply, right? It's just now my physical location will be changing from time to time. Sometimes I'll be in different states throughout the United States. At other times I'll be in different countries throughout the continent of Africa. And sometimes I'll be in other countries in Europe and potentially in Asia and sometimes Latin America and the Caribbean as well. So as I move around, the goal is still always around Pan-Africanism and the advancement of the continent of Africa and bringing these two groups of people together, Africans and the descendants of Africans living in the diaspora. That's always going to be the goal. And that's what we're going to continue to do with this live and all the content that I create. So that question has come up frequently. And, you know, I just wanted to make sure you guys all knew that this is not going anywhere. If anything, we're just increasing the volume of lives, of content, and the types of content that we do. So I appreciate everyone who has been along for the journey thus far. It's crazy to think that February of this year made 3 years since I launched the YouTube channel. And February of this year also made 5 years since I launched the Instagram page. And I never really thought that this platform would have the impact that it would have. I mean, the goal was always to try to impact as many people as I could, to help people make a decision around investing, moving, or visiting the continent of Africa. But so many other things happen. So many people have gotten citizenship in Sierra Leone because they've watched the platform. And not just specifically because of me, but sometimes because I've interviewed people like Aisha Ladan, and she walked through her experience and helped people understand what that looks like. People have started businesses on the continent of Africa. People have bought land in Africa through this platform. There's things that they've learned. There was ideas that they've that they've fostered, and I'm glad to have been able to help people do that. And so, my goal is to continue to do that no matter where I am physically. So, for Bang says, thank you for all your efforts, sir. Of course, of course. Lenora says, OMG. I don't know if Lenora knew that I was back in Brooklyn. Not sure if you were on any of the most recent lives, but I am back in Brooklyn, and I will be here for a couple of months before I travel back to the continent again. And at the end of the year, I will be in Sierra Leone, Ghana, and likely Kenya as I round out the end of the year. And so just keep in mind that although week to week I won't be on the continent, quarter to quarter I will be. Every quarter I will be on the continent at some point in time in some country, and talking you through that experience and through the lived experience of other people that are there. As I mentioned, again, we have partnerships with other folks that I'm going live, and I'm going to continue to be on those lives and having those discussions with folks. But even beyond that, there are going to be other times where other folks are telling their experiences without me being involved in those discussions, right? I am not going to always be the main. The platform is not always going to center around my personal experience. In many cases, there will be other folks telling their experiences. The goal of Authentic African in this platform has always been, again, get people to visit, move, and or invest on the continent of Africa. And I don't always have to be what it centers around in order to do that. So OD99 says, enjoy your travels. Thank you. Mistro Black says, good luck on your move, brother. Thank you. Lenora says, we will see soon. We will. Lenora, you and I have now met in Sierra Leone and in Ghana, and then we'll have to meet, of course, in Brooklyn. Or in New York at some point in time. Okay, so that gets that question out of the way, right? Am I shutting down Authentic African? Then that next question was, if I'm not shutting down Authentic African, what kind of content will I be doing? So again, for those of you who are just joining, no, we're not shutting down Authentic African. 2, what kind of content are we doing? We're doing content that's built around Pan-African perspective, right? Those folks who want to see Africa advance as a continent. And so that's about, again, moving, visiting, investing, building businesses, right? These are all things that this platform is going to revolve around. We're going to ensure that we help other people make better decisions on the continent to help advance moving forward. And I can tell you, as someone who lived on the continent for 3.5 years, who had many trials and tribulations, mistakes made, lessons learned, not a loss, but it's always a lesson, learned a lot of lessons. And throughout all of those lessons, that is how I've been able to speak with such authority on all of the things that I've been speaking to you all about, whether that's me interviewing successful businesses and understanding what kind of contingency plans they have in place to ensure that their businesses remain afloat, in a world where they're infrastructurally challenged, and there are going to be times where you have unexpected expenses that you're going to need to cover, that no businesses in the Western world have to think about, or what that looked like for me as someone who kind of moved to the continent of Africa on a whim without really having much insight and idea about what I wanted to do. I was giving that advice to you all about what you should be doing before you decide to make the move, based on the fact that I did not do that because I hadn't had that level of insight or that level of communication from anyone. And so I had to learn kind of through my own trials and through my own mistakes how to ensure that I was able to survive on the continent, as so many different things were changing, with consulting gigs that I had in the States, or employment changes in the United States, or all of those different transition and changes that were happening over that 3-year span. I had to learn to navigate living on the continent. And I was one of many people who made that move on a whim. But I wasn't one of those people that made the move on a stimulus check. Just so you guys know, I know a lot of people got those stimmies. I did not qualify for a stimulus check, unfortunately. So since I didn't qualify for the stimulus check, I made the move with completely different intentions and not with some newfound random, check that I got in the mail from the government, which many people did, which is why they left. It was a little bit different for me. It was a long thought out process. I consulted with many people, but there were elements to my life that those folks who gave me the advice, they gave advice based on their experience, not based on my circumstances at the time. And the advice that I give you all is the advice that I wish I got, right? This whole platform has been around making sure that I help you guys with the information that I wish I got or that I had. Lenora says, when are you writing your book? That's a good question. I have, my life, interestingly enough, I've lived about 5 different lives up to this point in time. I mean, this week I'll be 40 years old on Wednesday, and I've lived different lives, right? I went to a boarding school for underprivileged kids in Hershey, Pennsylvania for 13 years of my life. That is one whole life in and of itself. That's one book. I was let go during the financial crisis and really had to dig deep and figure out who I was, being on unemployment, food stamps, and on government aid and government assistance for 2 years, to the personal development journey that I was on, and being in home-based businesses and being inspired by people who had built something from nothing, and reading my first book at 19 and all these other things that happened where I kind of went on this personal development journey, all the way through the career trajectory that I had that led me to living in luxury apartments and moving to Los Angeles and like having that whole world and that outlook on life and thinking that I'm going in that direction, to then the pandemic. And then me completely shifting gears and saying, you know what, I'm going to move my whole life and make a shift and move to the continent of Africa. I mean, these are all things that they all have their own, they could be chapters in a very long book, but they could also be their own books. I mean, they are full of life lessons and experiences, failures and wins, that I think people can learn from each one of them. And all of those experiences made up who I am today. And then there's this new chapter or this new book where it is, I have now built that experience on the continent, learned as much as I could in that condensed period of time. It was almost a master's degree education in 3.5 years, or even almost a 4-year degree. And now, how do I take what I learned through that experience and help you all navigate the complex landscape of, helping to start build on the continent of Africa, building your future or your philanthropic efforts. So, long way to answer your question. Books will be coming, trust me, but they will be edited and probably ghost written. I'm sure. I would imagine that I will dictate and let somebody else do the work, because I'm not sure that I have the bandwidth to write books, but I will definitely read the audio version. That I would do. You can't have it in someone else's voice for sure. So Catherine Smith says, Joe, I think your platform will expand even more. Be sure to interview some Africans who now live in the USA as well. We would love to hear the perspectives. Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I had done that previously as well. Like, you guys might remember Veronica, who was a YouTuber. She lived in Sierra Leone until she was like almost 18. She was 18 actually, and moved to the United States, and she lives in Florida. And when she was in Sierra Leone for the first time in a few years, I happened to run into her. We met, and I interviewed her about her experience moving to the United States and what that was like. And so I will do that for other people, because I also think it's important for, many of you, 70+% of you guys are living in the diaspora, and you are interested in what's happening in Africa. But there's still that 30% that lives on the continent of Africa who want to hear what it's like for people who've left Africa and moved to the diaspora. And so we will be sharing those stories, the other way around as well. Because these are still authentic African stories. They're just now located in the diaspora. So Mistro Black says, been following your channel for years, and one thing I've realized is that the continent is not ready for its children to come back home the way other countries are. Some countries are on the continent ready, for sure. I think what has to happen is the individual needs to be ready. And what I mean by that is this: you as an individual, if you're deciding to move back to a country that's infrastructurally challenged, you're going to need to have contingency plans ready to ensure that you can sustain and also endure the different challenges that you're going to have. And then beyond all of that, because you are far away, if there are any life events that happen, you are going to need to be able to come up with large sums of cash to be able to help solve those challenges. Whether it's family members, illnesses, and things like that, having to rush back to the United States to cover expenses for folks and family and things like that. These are all things that you have to think about when you're that far away, right? And you have to have contingency plans in place for that. Even beyond generating income. I mean, for me, I had been a person who I had consulting gigs from 2018 through 2022 where I had clients paying $2,500 a month, having multiple clients, and knowing that I had new clients that were paying me a percentage of revenue that I was generating. And so, when you know that you have $2,500 coming from here, 25 from there, 1,500 from here, a percentage of revenue that might equal 2,000 or 3,000 from this particular client, the assumption is that you can keep that going in perpetuity. And what I learned, and which is why I always say to you, is you ensure that you actually have an income stream that is not dependent on your location, right? One of the things that happened for me is that my clients started drying up. I stopped having as many clients as I had when I lived here because I was further away from the industry. I was further away from events where I got a chance to meet a lot of these folks and to get a chance to share my knowledge and understanding of the industry and how I can help them build their businesses. Although the United States, it's a little bit easier to do business via the phone and email, it always enhances your relationships when you can meet in person. On the continent, it's almost always person-to-person handshakes and being there in person. In the United States, that enhances things. And as long as you're visible and you're around, you can continue to build a business. And where I went wrong was I assumed that no matter where I was and no matter how long I was there, I was always going to continue to have those consulting clients. The interesting thing is, as soon as I made it apparent that I was moving back to the United States, I made an announcement on LinkedIn in January. So I didn't make the announcement on any of the other social platforms because I wanted to ensure that I had a plan for my exit, and I didn't know when it was going to be, but I made an announcement on LinkedIn that I was planning to move. As soon as I did, the outreach from different folks that I knew from the industry, from programmatic digital advertising, was overwhelming, and it was exciting. The many different people reaching out, from Netflix to Google to Disney to other companies that you guys might not recognize, but other publicly traded companies. Experian. These folks were reaching out and saying, how can we help you? We have different roles that we think might be a good fit for you. And one of the challenges was, interviewing remotely for jobs that are now mostly hybrid or in person. And so I was having still trouble kind of getting past those early stages to get into discussions and really getting the interview process rolling. Luckily for me, I had some relationships that I had previously, and that landed me a consulting gig that pays 16 times Yes, 16 times the amount that that one client in Sierra Leone was paying. Okay, so just put that in perspective, right? And so that means that I can now operate with a little bit more capital for the things that I'm doing on the continent of Africa. That means that I can operate with a little more capital with this platform. I can do more with this platform now that I've, kind of gone back into the career field that I had been in previously. That is a lot more lucrative than what I was launching in Sierra Leone. And now I can utilize this to kind of help put in place those contingency plans that I'm telling all of you that you need to have. Manelik says, honored to work with you, bro. Keep up the great work. Thank you. And I always appreciated, Manelik for a while was the person behind doing all the timestamps for the live. So shout out to Manelik, because if it wasn't for him, there are many lives out there that I go on live streams that I had done where the the timestamps would never have been done. But he would watch the live all the way through, whether he watched it live or watched it back, and he would actually do timestamps and share that. So I want to shout him out. Absolutely. And iTuber said, Mr. You're right. For most people, it will be too much of an obstacle to create a stable life in most of Africa. I'll exclude places like South Africa, Botswana, etc., with working systems. That is true. Ace Lightoom says, I think your book will do good. You have a lot of experience to share. Yes. Laura says, I understand on the book thing. Yeah, I mean, I've had an interesting life. And one of the things that I will tell you is this, one of the biggest lessons that I have learned is it's the quote that I don't want to butcher from Martin Luther King, but you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step, right? And one of the things that I thought was really important is I had to stop getting ready to get ready. I spent my whole 20s talking about ideas that I never executed on, or I'd execute on it a little bit and not fully follow through with it. I would take a course and not apply that learning immediately. And somewhere right around 29, 30, 31, something switched where I really dedicated my life to learning as much as I can and applying what I was learning to real world circumstances and situations. And that greatly benefited me and helped accelerate my experiences and my lifestyle. And so I no longer live with regret, right? No fear of missing out, because I've had the opportunity to do a bunch of different things that I imagined I would do, but I wasn't sure how long it was going to take or what it was going to look like or, where it would be. But I was able to do that because I was lucky enough to have the experiences and other people's maybe foresight and even some of my own to apply some of those things to my life. And so, I think books could be interesting. Writing books about my life, I think, could be really interesting. And and one thing I'll share with you guys is I had a YouTube channel in 2010. I still have the YouTube channel. I'm streaming on that channel right now, and it was just Joe Hatakwa. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I was doing like home-based business stuff back in 2010, and like every time I would sit on like these calls where they were talking about affiliate advertising and what you can do online to build a business online, I would just regurgitate what I was learning to people on YouTube. And the interesting thing was I didn't stick with it. Can you imagine what that would have been like to take you guys through that journey of being on unemployment, on food stamps, and being authentic during that time and really expressing what life was like for me, to the major highs of living, working at Hulu, moving across the country from New York to LA, living in these luxury apartments, kind of all of those experiences, traveling around the world. I mean, as I mentioned to you guys before, I've traveled to over 22 different countries. Most of that stuff lives in like Instagram stories on now closed Instagram pages or, phones that no longer work. There were videos or iCloud, and so, had I kept that YouTube channel, we may have been in a different place when I moved to the continent of Africa. That YouTube business that I would have built starting in 2010 until I moved in 2021, you can imagine an 11-year YouTube business would have probably been a substantial size business had I kept the same level of fervor and consistency that I am now. And so what I've learned is that now I'm not going to go another 10 years wishing that I had done this, right? So that is another reason why Authentic African will continue to go. We're not going to see this go away because I've now seen what it's like to look back at 10 years and be like, if I would only have kept going, even if it was only one video a week, one video a month, how many more lives I could have impacted taking people through that journey, what it was like. Now I can retroactively do it, but you guys aren't living with me in real time. What you're getting is the result of the person who went through all of that. And there are new experiences now, right? I mean, I've gone through new experiences where I've learned a lot, and I'm taking you guys through that and what that might look like for you if you're planning to make a decision like I did. However, you guys all missed out on that because I did not decide to be consistent. So that will not happen again. Authentic African is absolutely here to stay as a platform. And as I said, it's only going to continue to grow. So Ya, aka YOA, says, "Preach, Joe. Needed that reminder. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step." Yeah, I used to have a football coach that would say, "Stop getting ready to get ready." Right? How many people have told me they want to start a YouTube channel? They want to start creating content. They want to do a podcast. When I was in Sierra Leone, I had these conversations with people weekly, people who bought all kinds of equipment. I knew a young lady who bought drones and mics and set up a studio. I knew three different people that would work on setting up studios and never actually followed through with creating their first piece of content. And, the idea of going from 0 to 1, the idea in your head to actually a tangible product is a lot harder than most people think. And then to stay consistent, and not only to stay consistent, but to take the ups and the downs, the road bumps. Nothing worth having comes easy, and it is very difficult to keep going. But I've seen a lot of people come and go in the content game. I've seen a lot of people get vlogging fatigue, content fatigue. I've seen people decide to just no longer want to do it because they weren't necessarily in it for the right reasons. For me, I know this is much bigger than myself. I've always had this goal since I realized what legacy was all about. The first time I went to Sierra Leone back in 2009, I realized that I want to make an impact on the broader world as much as I can. It's my ripple in time and space. I want it to be as big as possible, right? So how many people can I impact in a positive way? So, anybody I meet one-on-one, my goal is to have them walk away from me with some new information they didn't have before, feeling better about something, maybe even laughed, or some kind of nugget, just some way that they leave that encounter feeling better or having their lives improved ever so slightly. And so with this YouTube channel and with the Instagram platform, with all these platforms, I can do it on a broader scale, right? I can impact more lives. And so that, I think, is my calling. I was a kid who talked too much, who got on everybody's nerves, who can have a conversation with someone like last night into this morning, talking until 4 o'clock in the morning, right? I can, that's a gift, and some people would have thought it was a curse for a while till I was about 21 years old. It seemed to be a nuisance for most people. Like, man, this guy talks a lot. I don't know how many times I've been asked to shut up. But with this YouTube channel, it has allowed me to be able to have an outlet for that information and to find an audience of people who need this information. It wasn't always the case that people around me cared about the kind of topics that we're talking about here. And so I had to find that tribe of people who weren't physically present, but who were online in order to share this information and these details with you all. So I'm excited to continue to do that. And from a broader perspective, from a broader spectrum or broader perspective. Again, 1 or 2 hours of sleep were going on. So you guys are gonna have to forgive me for the gaffes, Joe Biden-esque gaffes. Sleepy Joe, I really am sleepy. So so iTuber says, congratulations again, well deserved. Now you can build that house fast. Yes. So that's the other thing, right? Yes. Okay, the house is expensive, and it is expensive to build a house cash. And it's going to require generating more cash on my part in order to do that. And part of that had to be me coming back here. Um, you know, something we talked about before, and I think Ya mentioned this. We need to normalize people moving back to the West to regroup, recalibrate, to pivot, in order to come back more prepared if you kind of moved unprepared. And that was me, there's in many cases, I think I talked about this on the last live. I lived in Los Angeles for 4 years, and I met people from Flint, Michigan, from outside of Detroit. I met people from Atlanta. I met people from other cities that are smaller than Los Angeles. Atlanta is different because it's big on its own. But like I met people from a lot of people from the Midwest, and when they moved to Los Angeles, it was like, whoa, this is too much. And for some people, they were Los Angeles didn't really vibe with them, but they stayed there because it would have been a failure to move back to their hometown, right? And some of you guys might relate to this, right? You might be from a small town, you move to the big city, times get hard, and you want to stick it out there. And I think it builds character, right, to deal with tough times. But some people stay longer than they should and don't ask for the help that they should because they don't want to be seen as a failure going back to where they went. And so I think for a lot of people, when it comes to moving to the continent, and then at some point in time making a decision to move back to the Western world, it can be seen as a failure, when it should be just more seen as a lesson and seen as a life experience. And maybe it's just a season for those folks. For me, it's a lifestyle. Like there is no possible way that I'm giving up my dual citizenship. There's no possible way that I will not be moving around the continent of Africa, because my goal in the end is to get people to do more on the continent of Africa, right? So that won't be changing at all. And so you guys can expect to see more content like this, where we talk about my experiences. That's not going to go away because my experiences continue to happen regardless of where I am physically at that moment. I mean, as we speak, I had water issues at the house, trying to figure that out from afar and ensuring that those walls get finally raised up on the house. And we're going to get videos of that out to you guys soon. I know I've been promising that for a while. You guys will be seeing that very, very soon. Expect to see some vlogs from me in the next 2 months, over the summertime on the house project. And it's pretty crazy to see how far we've come. I'm excited to share it with you guys because the last update you guys have seen was the guest house. And I think the last update you saw was that we were putting down a temporary roofing on the guest house. So much has changed since then. So much content I have in this device right here that I'll be sharing with you guys. And there's I think you guys will be excited to follow along with the story, and and I think it'll inspire some folks to also make the same decision. Manelik says, I hope we meet you in the near future. I hope so too. This is the other thing too. Now that I'm in the States, what I really want to do more often is to get communities together in person. One of the things that I found joy in was bringing different groups of people together when I would have these house parties, especially when I moved into my own apartments for the first time. I started, hosting like little get-togethers, Super Bowl, NBA Finals. Mayweather was fighting twice a year at the time, and he was undefeated, so people were watching to either see him lose or to continue the undefeated streak. So McGregor Mayweather, Bradley Mayweather, Pacquiao Mayweather, all those fights, I had fight parties around those. We had Insecure watch parties, that TV show Insecure from HBO with Issa Rae and Amanda Seales, who's now in the news. And I would have these fight parties, and I'd have these watch parties or these watch events, and I just love to bring people together. And I'm utilizing my birthday for that, as you know, this week, and I will be doing the same with this platform in person. As I go to different cities, I want to bring people together, have talks live, go live like this, but have talks with people in the audience. And you know, whether that's 5 or 10 people that come out, maybe at some point it gets to 50, 500, 1,000 people, right? We will grow this community, and we will ensure that, you know, all of the folks who are on the same wavelength. We don't know how many people there are in the diaspora around the world who are on the same wavelength as us. As of right now, across the platforms, at least around Authentic African, it's just over 550,000, over 500,000 people, right, have decided to go along in this journey in one way, shape, or another through TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And so, you know, we'll see how many of those folks we can gather in spaces to get to have those conversations, to meet each other, to collaborate, so that we're no longer just talking about the problems and talking about the solutions, but we're also working on those solutions. And so that's going to be the goal of the physical meetups and the live encounters that we'll be doing, the meet and greets that we'll be doing. You can expect that I'll do them here in New York. You expect that I'll do them in the DMV, in Atlanta, in Houston, probably, because I know there's a pretty good contingent in Houston. In Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. I do have a pretty good contingent of Sierra Leoneans in Jacksonville, Florida. And not to forget Los Angeles as well. A few of you guys, especially some of the early subscribers to the channel, were based in Los Angeles. And so I'd love to get a chance to meet many of you guys in person, and you know, and talk to you guys one-on-one. You know, that's something that's exciting to me. It's always cool to meet someone who encountered the channel or the platform at some point in time or another, and they give one anecdote from the platform that, you know, helped them get their citizenship, or, you know, understanding what it's going to be like when you hit the airport for the first time going to Sierra Leone, or restaurants that they tried in Ghana, or hotels that they stayed in Ghana or Sierra Leone. And I'm happy to have helped other people in that process. And so I'm looking forward to meeting some of you guys in person, you know, here in the near future, on the West, the global North, however people want to describe it these days. All right, so, you know, we're at a little over 52 minutes now. It's a little past 10:30 GMT, and it is 10 o'clock GMT. And right now it's, what is it? 6 p.m. EST for me. So I'll be going live at this time, obviously every Monday. And if anything changes, I'll make sure to let you guys know. My speech slurring like I consumed alcohol. Wow, that's what happens when you don't get much sleep. So iTuber12 says, I've been sub since Vanessa Canby interview, pretty much. I had just got my SL citizenship and was intrigued to finally hear about another Sierra Leonean American. Wow. Yeah. So, well, I appreciate you, you know, iTuber, because you've definitely been around for a really long time, always engaging in the discussions, and, you know, really being a part of helping to elevate the platform with your comments, your information, your insight. It's always been helpful. So I appreciate you showing up. Dele says, are you in Brooklyn? Events around business innovation, opportunities, or future of advertising? Sounds nice. Yes, of course. There'll be some version of those things. You know, the thing is, you know, I have two different worlds that I've lived in, right? I have my daytime professional life, which has been about helping brands find their target customers online. And so that has been broader brands. I mean, everything from Peloton to Coca-Cola to Target, right? Helping those brands find their audiences online, whether that's, you know, on the desktop, on mobile devices, on connected TV devices. Eventually, I also started doing that on social media as well, as a social media agency owner, right? if I do any of these kinds of events, especially around the authentic African brand, it actually has to make sense for businesses focused on Pan-Africanism or Africans and Africans in the diaspora, right? I want to help those businesses figure out how to use digital platforms to get their to find their target customers and to grow their customer base. So if there are going to be any conversations where I bring the two worlds together, right? My day job, what I've done in my career with what I have been doing with social media, it will have to be infusing these two to make it make sense for all of you as an audience who's listening, and you know, even for myself to to find a through line between those two worlds. So iTuber12 says, so if I recall correctly, you said you had an apartment in NYC. Are you in it now? Yes. In fact, as of June 15th, it will be the beginning of the 20th year that I will have been on the lease for this apartment. We moved in June of 2004, which is crazy to think about. As a 19-year-old, I moved into this very apartment that I am in right now. Had just turned 19. So I had just turned 20. Sorry, I was a 20-year-old. I had just turned 20. I was 19, just turned 20 the month before I moved in. And now we are less than a month away from the 20-year anniversary, and I will have just turned 20. And I think that is an interesting full circle moment. And so, you know, I don't think anything happens by accident. You know, this is my 40th year on the planet, and a major shift and change has happened in my life. It's the 20-year anniversary of moving into this apartment, and I'm back in this apartment again. I think things are cyclical, you know, and for me, you know, there's been these different, you know, pivotal moments in my life that have propelled me forward in a new direction. And I feel like this is one of those moments. And I'm excited to start to share that with you all as we go along. We're going to go deeper into my perspective and all of these different things as it still pertains to what I'm doing on the continent of Africa. We do not want to get lost in that because, yes, I am a whole human being, right? My entire life does not revolve around everything I'm doing on the continent of Africa, but a large majority of what I do does. But there are a lot of things that guide those decisions. And I think it'll probably be important to share more of those things and, you know, philosophies and values that have helped lead me to this point. And I guess giving you guys context around my life and what has happened will help you guys understand that a little bit more. So yeah. So iTuber says, wow, that's a long lease. I thought you owned it. No, didn't own it. We just keep renewing the lease every 2 years or every year. We just renewed the lease since 2004. So iTuber12 says, welcome back to America. This is your home as well. Spread your wings. And I guess fly around the world. I absolutely will. No question. I will continue to do so. Okay, cool. So, you know, look, we are less than a minute and 10 seconds away from hitting the full hour. I do want to complete the hour with you guys. So if there are any more questions or thoughts, I definitely want to answer your questions and thoughts. And for those of you who stayed on this long, right? You know, obviously it says want a consultation, email me at authenticafricanlife@gmail.com. You know, I also want to mention that I used to do this at the beginning of the lives, but I think I'm going to do this at the end of the live streams now, is remind you all of the services that I provide for folks who are planning to make a decision about moving to the continent of Africa. I think it's important to share this with you all because, you know, those of you who would join in the very beginning, not everybody might be as interested in those details. But those of you who have sat here this long may want to know how you can communicate with me one-on-one in a one-on-one environment where we talk and I help you understand what it will. I'll help you make a decision about what you want to do on the continent of Africa. So with that, I'm going to, if I can, present my screen and kind of walk you through some of the services that I'm providing for those of you who are looking to make a move, right? So if I can find the presentation, okay, it looks like I was able to find it. Okay, cool. So I'm going to share my screen now. I think this presentation should have all the details we're looking for. Yep, cool. So let me put that up on the screen for you guys to see, and we'll walk through all the services that I can offer you guys. This is something that, as I said, I used to do this presentation at the beginning, and I realized that there were many people who were joining at the beginning who were just trying to get to understand what the conversation was about. And I think it would take up too much time at the beginning to go through all of that before getting into the real details of the conversation. And so what we're going to do now is now we're going to talk about those different things that I provide to you as services. So if it is at all interesting to you, stick around as we talk about these things. So, okay. So I can help you move to the continent of Africa, right? As I mentioned to you before, specifically moving to West Africa. So, and specifically Ghana and Sierra Leone. So these are all the services that I can help you with. Hotels and Airbnbs, airport concierge services, lifestyle consulting in Ghana through myself or my partnerships. Moving to Ghana as well, obviously, moving or visiting Sierra Leone. I've had a bunch of sessions. Now the number is totaling, in terms of consulting, the number totals around 17 total sessions. And I've had conversations with people about Airbnb businesses, manufacturing businesses, transportation businesses, home buying. One of the people who I spoke to just purchased land and they are going to start building. I know someone who started an Airbnb business as well through my conversations with them. I think they kind of already had the idea, but we helped kind of solidify what that process should look like, things they should look out for, things they should keep in mind, and they were able to find a place and start the Airbnb process. And so not only do I have conversations with you about your ideas, but I can also help you figure out how to execute them. Again, there are many testimonials from different folks and more new testimonials now that I'll be sharing with you guys later on. If you want to book a consultation, link is in the description, right? Go to my link tree, just click on how to work with me. I also have influencer services. I mentioned before, I can create content for brands. I can also, host a webinar, host a virtual event, whatever that might look like, or MC an event, or be a panelist or panel moderator. I can also do in-person stuff, traveling. As I mentioned last year, I went to Gambia and Tanzania. End of this year, the plan is to go to Kenya and vlog in those experiences. And now that I'll have like a full team to help me edit those vlogs, I'll be able to get that content out faster and really high quality content that will get much more engagement and get people on these trips. Social media consulting. I have, this says over 400,000 followers, but it's actually over 500,000 because just looking at the top row, that's already just under 500,000 at the top row. Once you add the bottom three, we're over 500,000 followers across all platforms, which is crazy to think because we crossed 100,000 followers across all platforms in January of last year. It's just, January of 2023 is when we just crossed over 100,000 across all platforms. And to imagine that we've grown from that to over 500,000 in this amount of time is a testament to all of you and all of your continued support and sharing of this content. And so for those of you who want to promote your brand to my audience, that is something that I can do. But I also can consult you on how to build a social media following across a multitude of different platforms. And you can figure out from the description how to find me. If you want to promote your brand to folks like Taraji P. Henson and to someone like Shaka Khan, Shaka Khan has been really active on the platform lately, which I love because, obviously she's iconic, right? You guys might remember the song Through the Wire that Kanye sampled, which is originally Through the Fire. That is a Shaka Khan song. And she has so many other songs and music that, is timeless. And she started following the platform, I don't know how recently, but she's been very active. I mean, these are just two posts here. She comments a lot. She's liked a lot of posts. And so it's exciting to have someone who is as legendary as she is, as engaged as she is. And so, by being on our platform, not only are you in front of the quantity of over 500,000 people, but you're in front of the quality of people who are award-winning actresses and singers, universally recognized folks who have been following the platform, and you have the opportunity to be in front of those folks. So here's how you can set up your promotions with the platform, and you can just here's some case studies of folks that I've done stuff with. Our local artists, Drizzlick, a Sierra Leonean artist with Idris Elba, had a single we promoted. DTR 360 books. This was a really successful particular post here. Did really well. It's just a post that talked about the prisons banning a book, and DTR 360 is selling that book. And so, other folks, there was an all natural vitamin line. We had an African bodybuilder in Europe, breaking records and continuing to make us proud. And so these are folks who have been featured on the platform as partners who kind of paid one of or many of these different combo packs. So of course you want to work with me. That's how you can work with me. So that's it for now. I just wanted to go through that. Let's see if there's any other questions or comments. I see a couple people have fallen off in the meantime. Let's see what people are saying. So Dele Oshikoya says, "Are you in Brooklyn? Events?" Okay, we already talked about this. iTuber says, "So if the apartment. We've already talked about that. We talked about Next object. Okay, here we go. Next objective: stack up USD against Kenyan citizenship. Yes, I mean I think the United States recognizes 3 additional countries of citizenship, if I'm not mistaken. But other countries only recognize so many. So some countries don't allow you to maintain your citizenship with them if you have multiple other citizenships from other countries. So you have to be careful with that. I have to double check with Sierra Leone how many you can have. I've heard the United States allows 3, but then I've heard the United States allows unlimited. I know rap music is sometimes an exaggeration of real life, but I do remember that song off the Watch the Throne album where Jay-Z said, "I have 5 passports, I'm never going to jail." So I don't know if he actually has 5 passports. I have 2. And so if that is the case, the United States might allow you to have a multitude of different passports from other countries. So I'm not really 100% sure. But yeah, it's always beneficial to be able to have citizenship in a country. If you want to buy land, you want to start a business, open a bank account, get a driver's license. It just allows you to move through and navigate that country a whole lot easier if you have citizenship in that country. Trust me, as someone who has citizenship in 2 different countries, my life has been much smoother having had these 2 citizenships, for sure. I would likely be in Sierra Leone at the end of December, so hopefully we can link up. Hopefully, we've communicated for so long online. It'd be great to be able to meet in person. Admin Bentley says, "Mr. Black, what do you mean Africa is not ready for you in the contest? You are not ready for Africa. You don't have the mental capacity." Okay. I think I don't know if personal attacks are necessary, but as some of that sentiment is correct in the sense that certain people need to do the work necessary to make that move. So I'll agree with that and that piece in particular, but I don't want any ad hominem attacks of folks on the platform. iTuber says, when I buy with TAF, I'll probably need that Airbnb services. Okay, cool. So I will more than happy to do a consultation on how to set up your Airbnb, how to title it. I didn't even go that far with the other person that started their Airbnb and they've already started the business. We just kind of talked through like what they need to know. But I also can do sessions very specifically on how to title it. I've taken courses on how to utilize platforms like PeerSpace and Airbnb to maximize revenue. I've been an Airbnb host. I've been a PeerSpace super host. And I've been an Airbnb guest in 5 countries. Yeah, 5 or 6 countries, a multitude of different times, over 10 times. So I know it very well. So is just excited that Shaka Khan is on the platform. I don't think getting Kenyan citizenship is that easy. I think you need to be a resident for at least 7 years. There you go. I met you around those B2B events. We need to blur it. How's your outlook on Nigeria? Be cool if you cross-source development of RE projects, real estate projects. Look, I would. You're right. Actually, I think it'll be important to cross-source real estate projects, and that's something that I've started to have discussions with in terms of folks who started consulting with me in Sierra Leone. And now that I know the chief personally in Bo, and I've now gone through the process of acquiring land multiple times there, I'm confident in knowing what the process looks like and what it takes and somewhat what it could cost. And so I can help you guys along that process and we can do it on a larger scale. I would like to have partnerships in that process though. What I realize is that I can't focus on 100 things at once. I can only do so much with my bandwidth. And there are specific things that I'm looking to launch here. So if anyone who's bought land in any country, Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Kenya, whatever, and you've been part of a crowdsourced development project, let me know. I'm more than happy to partner with you on the communication, on driving people to it, to be a partner, but I need someone else to manage the logistics of getting it set up because I do not have the bandwidth to be the person to manage it overall. And Deli, is this D? Is this D, the D that I known for all these years? I can't tell because of the avatar. iTuber12 says, I'm aware. I'm just saying Kenya is the next place to go. If it takes 7 years, no problem. Whatever the law requires, but you need to bring value. There's always fast track things. Yes. Miss S says, how difficult is it to get citizenship in Kenya? Do they have a naturalization or ancestry process? Nobody else has an ancestry process like Sierra Leone. Just to be clear, Sierra Leone is the only one that offers citizenship through DNA ancestry. Now there are different kinds of DNA. So technically, if your parents are both born in certain countries, there are countries that have rewritten their constitutions or have had it in their constitutions to allow you to get citizenship. So for me in Sierra Leone, my parents were both born in Sierra Leone, so I was able to get my citizenship end of 2018, rolling into early 2019. So yeah. Manelik says, I will be in touch soon to pick your brain on tips for moving to Ghana. Nice. Wow, A is excited that Manelik will be moving to Ghana soon. All right, cool. So we have now been on live for an hour and 13 minutes. I think we have answered all the questions. We've talked about it, right? Are we shutting down Authentic African? The answer is no. No way that is happening. And so I look forward to, hitting the next milestone across all platforms of 500,000. We're at 500,000 now. I'm looking forward to getting to 1 million overall across the platforms and reaching as many people as possible with the information and with the knowledge that we're sharing. And for this audience and this community to grow with that community. It's crazy to think that we've gotten to over 500,000 in the time frame that we have. And the community has become, what it's become. and it's exciting because you never know what you're building when you're building something like this, right? It's the folks who come on board who shape the culture. Um, and so, this has really been an exciting process that I really feel like, you know, if I had not done this, I'm not really sure how my experience on the continent would have been. I think I still would have had a good experience, but this outlet has really been helpful to just kind of get my thoughts and ideas out there. And it's given me even more drive to continue to do what it is that I do. And it's because I communicate with all of you guys. You guys give me energy. Like I said, I'm on 2 hours of sleep. I was falling asleep at my laptop working on the thumbnail and the description for this live, and you guys have you guys give me energy, so I'm always able to come back and go live and have the energy to do so. What is the process of getting land? Okay, wow, the process of getting land was certainly not what I expected. Not necessarily difficult, but the time it takes to get through the process, yes, it takes a lot. iTuber 12 says, that's right, I forgot. Joe is technically a prince as he is from a long line of kings. British decided to change their titles to chiefs, and they have been referred to as such since. That is correct. Correct. Or at least 3 generations of kings. It's hard to know before then because it's not documented. A Slime 2 says, please do not forget to reply to my email. Can you resend that email so it's at the top of my inbox? Please, I will reply back to it for sure. All right. All right. Thank you. So with that, guys, thanks for watching. I will see you all on the next live.